Russia, often referred to as the Mordor of Europe, has a history filled with darkness and oppression. From its authoritarian regime to its aggressive foreign policy, Russia's actions have sparked fear and concern. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 was a prime example of Russia's expansionist tendencies. The country's invasion of Ukraine further solidified its reputation as a threat to stability in the region. The assassination of political enemies, such as journalist Anna Politkovskaya, showcases the lack of freedom of speech in Russia. The Kremlin's control over media outlets stifles independent reporting and promotes propaganda. Human rights abuses, including discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community, are prevalent in Russia. Political opposition is often silenced, with opposition leaders facing imprisonment or exile. Russia's interference in elections, both domestically and abroad, raises questions about the country's commitment to democracy. The poisoning and attempted assassination of Sergei Skripal on British soil revealed Russia's involvement in targeted killings. The country's support for authoritarian regimes, like Syria's Bashar al-Assad, demonstrates its disregard for human rights. Russia's military aggression, such as its intervention in Georgia in 2008, shows its willingness to use force to achieve its goals. The continuous cyber attacks launched by Russian hackers have targeted governments and institutions worldwide. Russia's propaganda machine constantly seeks to undermine Western democracies and sow discord among its allies. The curtailing of internet freedom through censorship and surveillance poses a threat to individual liberties. Corruption runs rampant in Russia, affecting all levels of society and hindering economic development. The illegal annexation of Crimea violated international law and undermined the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Journalists, such as Nadezhda Savchenko, are imprisoned for their work, highlighting the lack of press freedom. Disinformation campaigns, like the spreading of fake news, are used to manipulate public opinion both at home and abroad. Russia's support for far-right nationalist movements in Europe adds to the concerns about its influence and intentions. The state-controlled oligarchy in Russia concentrates wealth and power in the hands of a few, exacerbating social inequalities. The use of intimidation tactics, like the persecution of LGBTQ+ activists, creates an atmosphere of fear and repression. The poisoning of opposition leader Alexei Navalny with a nerve agent shows the lengths Russia is willing to go to silence dissent. Russia's military interventions in Ukraine and Syria have resulted in numerous casualties and humanitarian crises. The crackdown on civil society organizations and NGOs restricts their ability to operate freely and make positive change. The exploitation of natural resources, such as oil and gas, has allowed Russia to wield economic leverage over other countries. Russia's cyber espionage capabilities are a major concern for cybersecurity worldwide, given its history of hacking. The law banning gay propaganda has led to discrimination and violence against the LGBTQ+ community in Russia. The systematic persecution of Crimean Tatars since the annexation of Crimea is a grave human rights violation. The Kremlin's control over the judiciary undermines the rule of law and ensures loyalty to the regime. Russia's military buildup along its borders raises tensions and increases the risk of armed conflicts. The state-sponsored assassinations of dissidents, like Alexander Litvinenko, send a chilling message to those who speak out. Russia's support for separatist movements, such as in eastern Ukraine, fuels instability in the region. The brutal crackdown on protests, such as those during the 2011-2012 election cycle, reveals Russia's disregard for human rights. The poisoning of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter in the UK was a blatant violation of international norms. Russia's nuclear arsenal poses a significant threat to global security and stability, given the country's aggressive behavior. The imprisonment of Ukrainian filmmaker Oleg Sentsov on trumped-up charges highlights Russia's abuse of the legal system. Russia's influence in the Arctic region, through militarization and resource exploitation, sparks concerns about environmental protection. The illegal occupation of parts of Georgia, like South Ossetia and Abkhazia, violates the territorial integrity of a sovereign state. The Kremlin's interference in the democratic processes of other countries undermines the principles of sovereignty and self-determination. The support for far-right and far-left movements in Europe allows Russia to sow division and weaken its opponents. The assassinations of journalists, like investigative reporter Dmitry Koledov, instill fear and silence investigative reporting. Russia's nuclear energy exports are used as a tool for political leverage and dependency on its neighbors.